Welcome to this deep dive. If you are joining us right now, it is probably because you're like us. You absolutely love a thorough, quick, and deeply insightful character study.
Oh, absolutely.
We have just a massive stack of campaign dossiers, lore bibles, and session notes spread out on the table today.
So many notes.
Right. But our mission is highly specific. We aren't trying to cover the entire world today. We are zeroing in on a single standout figure from this whole sprawling source material.
And it is such a good one.
Her name is Reva Stoneaxe. Although, if you find yourself wandering the shadowed, damp alleyways of the lower city docks...
Which you probably shouldn't.
No, definitely not. But if you did, you'd only ever hear her referred to as the Quill.
It is the perfect focus for today's discussion. Just to set the stage a bit for you, the sources we're analyzing, they detail this desperate underground resistance.
Yeah.
And it's operating within a cliffside city called Tahala. The city is just groaning under the weight of an impressive, highly militarized regime known as the Golden Lions.
They are brutal.
Incredibly brutal. And when you flip through these world-building notes, you are hit with grand political struggles, massive necrotic industrial complexes.
Magic everywhere.
Right, ancient, world-altering magic. But instead of getting lost in that macro-level view, zooming in on Reva anchors the entire narrative. She is a Tiefling resistance leader, and she truly represents the pragmatic, beating heart of this entire rebellion.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Reva brings this incredibly grounded, just no-nonsense vibe to a world that is otherwise completely drowning in magical chaos and political posturing.
She really does.
But before we get into how she runs a rebellion, we need to talk about her physical presence. The source material paints such a vivid picture. We are looking at a Cholton Tiefling, late 30s to early 40s.
And the notes describe her skin as dark brown with these muted reddish-purple undertones.
Yeah, giving her a very earthy, warm look. But there is no hiding her infernal heritage. She has these large, sweeping, dark, gray-black horns curving back from her temples.
Which is such a striking image.
It is. And her eyes, they are described as striking amber gold, with an actual glowing quality to them in the dark.
You also have to factor in the faint scars.
Oh, right.
The ones crisscrossing her cheekbones and her brow. These aren't decorative marks. They are the physical receipts of a combat veteran who has survived a very brutal life. What's fascinating here is how her physical appearance dictates her entire survival strategy in Tahala.
How so?
Well, she physically cannot hide. In the city under strict military lockdown, where patrols are checking papers on every corner.
Yeah, a glowing-eyed tiefling with sweeping horns is a walking target.
Exactly. So rather than trying to cower in the shadows or wear heavy cloaks that just make her look suspicious, she hides in plain sight. She uses sheer, undeniable competence. She works openly as a dock worker, hauling cargo, and she uses that gritty working-class reality as her armor.
Which brings up something I found genuinely hilarious in the dossiers.
A codename.
Yes. Her codename in the underground is the Quill. If you are a Golden Lion investigator intercepting messages about someone named the Quill, you are probably picturing like a delicate, subtle scribe.
Right.
Hiding out in a dusty library somewhere, forging transit papers and avoiding the sunlight.
Someone's really fragile.
Exactly. But the reality is completely upside down. The notes classify her as a level 5 rogue.
And we should translate what that actually means in the context of this universe.
Yeah.
In a world populated by demigods, paladins in shining armor, archmages who can level buildings with a thought.
A level 5 rogue isn't doing that.
No. She isn't relying on world-shattering magic. She is a street-level survivor. She relies entirely on sharp instincts, quick reflexes, and knowing exactly where to put a blade when negotiations fail.
Speaking of blades, I was going through some of the community notes and forums, and there seems to be this massive, persistent rumor.
Oh, the maul.
The giant maul. People think that because she is this tough-as-nails dock worker, she wields this signature giant bone-crushing maul, which sounds like an amazing visual.
It sounds incredibly cinematic.
This glowing-eyed rebel swinging a massive hammer.
But the campaign dossiers actually go out of their way to explicitly dispel that rumor. That is likely a myth spread by terrified city guards to make her seem like a hulking monster.
That makes sense.
The truth is much more practical. You don't swing a giant maul in the cramped, cluttered environment of a ship's rigging or a crowded tavern. Her actual loadout is built entirely around precision and speed. She carries daggers, a short sword, and a hand axe.
That makes so much more sense. She is fighting in alleyways, not open battlefields.
Exactly.
Her gear reflects that working class practicality, too. She isn't wearing dramatic, flowing rogue cloaks that would get caught in a winch. She wears practical earth tones
And she has her forearms wrapped tightly in thick cloth.
to protect against rope burns from the dockyard rigging. And she is weighed down by heavy utility belts loaded with pouches and tools. She is built for the brutal, close-quarters reality of the lower city docks.
And the docks are exactly where she anchors her operations. Reva is the leader of the Ebonhold resistance cell, operating out of a place called the One-Eyed Cat Inn.
The One-Eyed Cat.
Yes. And this isn't some glamorous, secret underground bunker with glowing maps. It is a loud smell of stale beer, working-class tavern. Sailors, smugglers, and dockhands are constantly crossing paths.
It's the perfect cover.
It's chaotic neutral ground. You can gather intelligence, pass-coded messages, and coordinate a rebellion right under the regime's nose because the background noise is so loud.
I want to talk about the people she is coordinating in that tavern. Because her crew is wildly diverse, the roster reads like a headache for any manager.
It really does.
You have Brick, who is a Goliath, essentially a massive mountain-dwelling humanoid acting as their quiet muscle. Then there is Clink, a Kenku burglar.
Huh?
And if you aren't familiar, Kenku are these crow-like beings that communicate entirely through perfect auditory mimicry.
Fascinating dynamic there.
Right. You also have Boomer, a goblin demolitionist with a serious pyromaniac streak. My favorite detail here is that the notes say he is already missing 2 fingers from his, quote, learning experiences.
A very diplomatic way of putting it.
We have all had that one coworker who insists on learning everything the hard way. But Boomer takes it to a literal explosive level.
He really does.
And rounding out the crew is Pip, a halfling phantom rogue who carries this very dark, quiet, traumatized energy. So what does this all mean? If you have ever trying to lead a team, whether it is a massive corporate project with an impossible deadline or just a community volunteer group, you know how impossible it feels to get 4 wildly different personalities to row in the same direction. What is her secret?
The insight we can pull from her dossier is what we might call tactical empathy. A lesser, more ego-driven leader would try to force this crew into a standardized military mold.
Make everyone act the same.
Right. They would try to make the pyromaniac goblin be quiet and stealthy. Reva's genius is that she doesn't demand conformity. She builds her operational plans around their existing eccentricities.
That's smart.
She knows Brick is an immovable object, so she puts him where she needs a wall. She knows Clink only speaks in sounds, so she uses him as a completely secure messenger.
Oh, wow.
Imagine receiving a coded message that is just the sound of a tavern door creaking, followed by a specific seagull cry. No Golden Lion Guard is intercepting that.
She meets them where they are.
Precisely. This raises a fantastic question about leadership. Do you demand loyalty, or do you earn it? Reva earns it by being fiercely protective. She doesn't send her people on suicide missions for the sake of ideological glory.
No point in dying for nothing.
Exactly. She evaluates every single risk with a cold, calculating eye. She counts the resistance as coin, and she counts her people's lives with the exact same level of brutal scrutiny.
We actually see that philosophy put to the ultimate test in the records of the Session 6 breakout.
Such a great sequence.
This is arguably the narrative highlight of her entire dossier. To give you the setup, the Golden Lion Enforcers have raided Ebonhold territory, and they have managed to capture the party's goblin artificer, Gobbo.
It's a disaster for the crew.
Total disaster. He is sitting in a holding cage inside a heavily fortified prison manacled, just waiting to be processed into the regime's nightmare penal system. The regime is baiting a trap here. They fully expect the Ebonhold resistance to either cower in fear or launch a desperate emotional frontal assault against the prison walls.
Let's put ourselves in that scenario. Your friend is captured. The clock is ticking. The natural instinct is to grab every weapon you have and kick the front door down.
Guns blazing.
But Reva doesn't do chaotic. She does methodical. Instead of a loud, bloody siege, she orchestrates a Trojan horse. She manages to secure a fake, blood-stained official prison wagon.
And the level of detail on this wagon is insane. The notes mention it has the official forged Iron Lion stamps, the correct bureaucratic transfer paperwork, everything. And she doesn't try to sneak this thing in under the cover of midnight when the guards are on high alert for shadows. She rolls this fake wagon right up to the front gates of the heavily armed prison exactly at the dawn shift change.
It is a stroke of absolute tactical brilliance. If you think about the psychology of a guard at the dawn shift change, they're tired, they're holding cold coffee, they are staring at the sun coming up, and they just want to go home.
They aren't looking for a fight.
Exactly. They're expecting routine administrative transfers, not a heavily armed rebel strike team disguised as a prisoner transport. Reva understands that the best way to bypass a massive, terrifying system is to look exactly like a boring, functioning part of that system.
So they get inside. The party infiltrates the holding area, Clink handles the locks, the chaos erupts from the inside out, and they manage to get Gobbo out of the cage.
A clean extraction.
Mostly clean. But my notes here highlight something Reva does immediately after the breakout that seems completely counterintuitive. The fighting spills out, bodies are hitting the cobblestones, and the surviving Golden Lion guards start sprinting for their lives, and Reva actually orders her crew to stand down.
She lets them go.
She deliberately lets the guards scatter. Why on earth would you leave witnesses who can identify you?
It looks like a massive tactical error until you realize she is playing a completely different game than the guards are. She lets them run because it is a calculated psychological strike. She wants those terrified, breathless guards to run straight back to Tovin's personal enforcer.
The Painted Fang.
Yes, a terrifying figure in the lore known as the Painted Fang. She wants the regime to hear, directly from their own surviving men, exactly who hit them. The message is clear. The Ebonhold resistance is no longer just hiding and forging papers. We are hitting back, and we can walk right through your front door to do it.
She is essentially claiming the victory to shift the balance of power in the city. But that kind of audacity comes with a brutal personal cost. In the chaos of the escape, the rescue party manages to hijack a Golden Lion ship called the Dauntless.
They need to get out fast.
They are fleeing the city, escaping out to sea before the regime can mobilize a full crackdown. But Reva doesn't get on the boat.
No, she doesn't.
She stands on the docks and watches them sail away. She deliberately chooses to remain in the lion's den, knowing full well that Tahala is about to go into absolute lockdown, and her face is going to be on every wanted poster in the district.
That decision crystallizes who she is. She prioritizes the network over her own life. She knows that if she leaves, the dock workers, the smugglers, and the informants left behind will face the full, unmitigated wrath of the Golden Lions.
Someone has to stay.
She stays to draw the heat and manage the fallout. And what makes her a truly unforgettable leader is that she doesn't just protect her people physically, she protects them emotionally. We see the heavy, crushing cost of that in the records from Session 11A.
I was hoping we would get to this because it strips away all the tactical genius and just shows us the raw empathy of the character. This isn't a battle sequence. It is just a quiet room in the tavern, a flickering oil lamp, and Reva sitting down at a scarred wooden table with Pip.
The halfling phantom rogue we mentioned earlier.
Right.
To understand the gravity of this scene, you have to know that for 3 years, Pip has been running jobs for her cell. He has bled for the resistance, risked his life daily, all to earn one specific piece of intelligence from her network. He's been desperately trying to find out what happened to his parents, who were swept up by the Golden Lions 18 years ago.
18 years. Reva finally gets her hands on the highly classified routing files from the regime's Article Sev pipeline. She pours Pip 2 fingers of rum, slides the cracked wooden cup across the table, and looks this deeply traumatized member of her crew in the eye to deliver the truth. She tells him that his parents were taken to a location called Site T28, which the locals call Otamu's Forge.
And we need to clarify what Otamu's Forge is, because it is not just a prison.
Yeah.
It is a necrotic rendering facility. It is an industrial nightmare where prisoners are essentially worked to death amidst toxic, magical runoff. The source documents note it has a staggering 70 to 80% mortality rate within the first 2 years of arrival.
And his parents were sent there 18 years ago.
She knows exactly what those numbers mean.
She does. And she doesn't try to soften the blow with false optimism. I want to read the exact quote from the dossier because her raw honesty is just breathtaking. She looks at Pip and says, "If they went there, they're gone. I can't get you certainty. Best I can offer is probabilities and ghosts."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is profound emotional protection. A weaker leader, someone uncomfortable with grief, would have patronized Pip. They would have offered some vague, hollow hope, suggesting that maybe his parents somehow survived against impossible odds, just to make the conversation easier for themselves.
And avoid the pain of the moment.
Exactly. But Reva respects him too much to lie. She knows that false hope is a slow-acting poison. She takes on the discomfort of being the bearer of bad news so that Pip doesn't have to spend the rest of his life carrying the agonizing weight of uncertainty. She gives him the dignity of the brutal, unvarnished truth.
The scene in the notes is so stark. Pip doesn't scream or cry. He just sits there. He doesn't even touch the rum she poured him. Finally, his chair scrapes against the stone floor, and he stands up to walk out of the room in total silence. As he reaches the door, Reva offers him one final tragic comfort regarding a recent raid the party had launched on that exact facility.
Yeah.
And again, her words are just seared into the text. They tried to save them, Pip. It wasn't enough. It never is, but they tried.
She cannot give him his parents back. She cannot conjure a happy ending out of thin air. But what she can give him is the knowledge that someone out there finally cared enough to fight back on their behalf. For you, listening to this, the takeaway is incredibly powerful. True leadership often requires delivering devastating news. It is about holding the hard truths so your people can finally start to process them while never losing your fundamental human empathy.
It is such a heavy, powerful note to land on. So let's take a step back and briefly recap the profile of Reva Stoneaxe we have built today. We started with this striking earthy figure with amber gold eyes and sweeping horns who uses her calloused hands as a dock worker to hide a brilliant, calculating mind.
A true survivor.
We looked at a tactician who orchestrated a flawless psychological dawn prison break using a fake transport wagon. And we saw a deeply empathetic commander who honors her people enough to tell them the hardest truths over a cup of rum. And right now, according to the current state of the campaign records, she is still out there. She remains underground, operating in the shadows of Tahala, a city entirely controlled by a regime that desperately wants her dead.
She is the anchor in the storm for the Ebonhold cell. She is proof that sometimes the most dangerous weapon a rebellion has isn't a magical artifact or a giant maul, but a leader who simply refuses to break under pressure.
It makes you wonder about the nature of survival itself. We so often think of survival as escaping the danger, getting on the boat and sailing away from the things that threaten us.
The natural instinct.
Right. But Reva's story introduces a totally different paradigm. It suggests that sometimes true survival isn't about running away from the lion's den. It is about learning how to rule the shadows inside of it.
Absolutely.
So as you go about your week, ask yourself, when faced with an overwhelming challenge, are you focused on running for the nearest exit, or are you figuring out how to own the shadows that challenge casts? Reva deliberately chose to stay behind in a city completely controlled by a regime that wants her dead, just so she could protect her people. It makes you wonder, when you are fighting a massive systemic problem, is the greater courage found in breaking out to fight another day, or staying behind in the shadows of the lion's den?
That is a phenomenal question to carry forward. It reframes adversity not as something to escape, but as an environment to master.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring the lore, keep asking the hard questions, and always look for the hidden leaders operating right in front of you. Catch you on the next one.